Full body tracking. Probably one of my favorite parts of virtual reality in general. I love the idea of motion capture, and it's always fascinated me. But it's always been very expensive and the applications are pretty limited. VR full body tracking, on the other hand, opens up a whole new world of immersion and interaction within most social VR applications like VR chat, for example. And even a game or two like Blade and Sorcery allows you to Spartan kick as long as you have full body. But there's a massive problem. Right now, if you want good full body tracking, you gotta cough up some dough and have laser tracking in the form of SteamVR base stations. If you're on a Quest 2, for example, that gets very expensive very fast. But what if I were to tell you there's an alternative? No base stations, no lasers, no Vive trackers, and to have full body tracking on any VR headset connected to PC, and it costs around the price of one 3.0 Vive tracker. This is SlimeVR. I've got a very early unit right here that I've been testing, and I'm going to tell you everything about it. The main question here, does it even work, and how does it compare to the king of full body, the Vive Tracker 3.0? I've spent a lot of time with Slime, so let's just get right into it. So in terms of full body tracking in virtual reality, there are actually a ton of options to choose from, and I'll be honest right away, the absolute best full body tracking you can get for the money is buying 2 base stations, 3 full body trackers, and 3 track straps. Of course, that's pretty expensive. Just to have full body, you're talking about $800 if you don't have base stations already. You can almost buy 3 Quest 2s for that, and I don't know why you would, but I guess you could. Now, if you have base stations already, like you have an Index or Vive, then I'd really just recommend getting a set of trackers. Your money will be well spent, but if you're like 75% of all Steam VR users and you don't have base stations, there are cheaper options. You could use an Xbox Kinect, but it's honestly not very good. Latency is high and you always have to face one direction. Nolo is a possibility, but I'd recommend against it, and you could use 2 webcams with mocap for all, but today we're looking at something totally new. These slime trackers are very, very interesting, and I want to say right away, these are not the final units. Yes, they have issues, and I'll talk about them, and they're definitely not perfect, but for what they are, honestly, they're pretty amazing. Let's get into the nitty-gritty. These trackers are practically completely wireless unless you count the wire that connects to the additional IMU strapped to your body. They also work through 2.4 gigahertz Wi-Fi, and we'll get onto that later because I ran into some interesting issues you'll need to consider if you do buy SlimeVR. The tracking works via a network of IMUs, or inertial measurement units, which are basically devices that measure, to put it very simply, how fast you're moving, the acceleration of movement, and orientation. An IMU on its own kind of acts like a Quest controller in the dark. There's rotation and some movement data, but not much more. And this is where SlimeVR is really special. With quite literally every other form of tracking, especially full body tracking, you have to be in direct line of sight of either a base station, Kinect, or camera. With SlimeVR, that is not a requirement. Using some fancy coding and software, the slime trackers know each other's position relative to your headset, which does have full 6 degrees of freedom tracking. And there's enough information given from each tracker and IMU that through some more drivers and tracker emulation, SteamVR can approximate the rough position and orientation of the hip and each foot. And if you've ever been in full body tracking before and, for example, laid down to watch a movie, you'll know the struggle of being cold because a blanket will cover all of your trackers and you'll lose tracking. So no blanket. This is one huge benefit of something like Slime. Since it's all IMU tracking over Wi-Fi, you don't have to be in line of sight of any base station or camera, just have a good Wi-Fi connection. Meaning you can fully occlude all of the trackers, it doesn't matter. But it's not all peaches and cream. This setup was a pain to say the least. But let's look at what the kit actually comes with. My prototype kit came with 5 main trackers, and 3 of those trackers had an additional IMU on it. Then a litany of Velcro straps in order to strap it to your body, a few micro USB cables, and that's about it. In terms of software, you'll need to manually install the SteamVR driver that sort of emulates Vive trackers from the position of the 8 IMUs. Then you'll need the SlimeVR server application, Arduino application, and on your phone, you'll need a pretty terrible, almost sketchy Chinese application called ESP Touch, and that connects the trackers to the local SlimeVR server. Now, here's where I disclaim something. If you're expecting SlimeVR to be plug and play, easy to set up, takes 2 seconds with no hassle, then you're in the wrong place, my friend. As of now, in this state, which mind you, this is a work in progress, the software is still being improved and updated and changed, and you're going to have to do some work to get everything working properly. Here's pretty much what the setup looked like. Install the driver, connect your PC to a 2.4 GHz Wi-Fi connection, or have a 2.4 GHz Wi-Fi card, and here's the stickler. If you have a fancy Wi-Fi 6 router that only supports the AX band, as in 802.11ax, and a lot of the newer Wi-Fi 6 routers only support this band, SlimeVR simply is not compatible. I personally had to set up an additional older router to get this to work properly. Then open your phone, connect to the same router, open up ESP Touch, sign into the Wi-Fi, enter 5 devices, and start. Turn on each slime tracker individually, and more than likely, nothing will happen. And this is where the tinkerer part comes in. Open the Arduino application, plug in one slime tracker at a time, and manually assign the Wi-Fi address to it, and then repeat 5 times. Now you should see all of the trackers appear in the SlimeVR server. Time to suit up, and starting with 1 foot, not yet. You now have to set all of the trackers down on the floor to minimize movement, and pick up 1 tracker at a time to manually assign the placement. That being left and right foot / ankle, left and right hip, left and right leg, hip, and chest. After assigning the position, now you can suit up. And you have to wear these in a pretty specific manner, flat side up, all facing forward. The idea is to have an IMU on each foot, ankle, leg, hip, and chest, and there's a very specific way to rig it up. I will say the slime trackers are not uncomfortable. They're pretty light, or at least lighter than a Vive tracker, and while I wouldn't exactly go clubbing with these on, they don't look terrible either. And as long as I look good in a VR club, that's all that really matters. Now, looking down in SteamVR, these things still aren't perfect, but a handful of tinkering with settings and performing resets get the results pretty close. At least somewhat close to where the trackers should be. Now launch VRChat or any other social application that supports full body tracking like Neos or Chillout VR with the server up, and the trackers should appear just like you expect. Now just hope that nothing crashes. Okay, now here's a lesson that I learned the hard way, and maybe this will be fixed in the future, or at least I really hope it does, but the SlimeVR server doesn't save any of the work you did. So if it crashes or you close it, expect to have to do that entire procedure of calibration and manual inputs all over again. So if I were you and this problem still exists at launch, mark each tracker with its position and IP address so that next time you can easily put the information in, because it does take time and it's annoying. Just hope that the IPs aren't scrambled. After doing all of this again, the question still lives. How does it actually track? Is the tracking quality any good, and is it worth your money and your time? Because trust me, this will take time to set up. Here was my methodology of tracking quality. I decided to go with practical tests, since wearing slime is necessary to test it at all. I tested standing and walking, sitting down, laying down, dancing, and of course, it wouldn't be a ThrillSeeker full body tracking video if I didn't test it. I had to do it a handstand, and I compared these all directly with a set of Vive Tracker 3.0s. For both tests, I'm using the Valve Index. So walking and standing, I am immediately impressed. I did have a problem with my right foot, and I couldn't get it to calibrate properly, and talking to the creators of Slime, this is a known problem and it will be fixed via software. And this is a running theme that I'll talk about at the end, but there's lots of fixes that need to happen. But what I'm looking for here is raw tracking potential. The problems you see with my foot in this video are due to the software side of things, not the potential of the tracking. It does track well, it's just not calibrated properly. Walking around in my avatar in Slime doesn't look quite as good or natural as the Vive trackers, but it works, and it is very low latency, all things considered. I mean, this is being ran wirelessly through Wi-Fi through a server. Walking looks pretty decent, but we all know people's favorite thing to do with full body tracking, and that's sitting or laying down, likely in front of a mirror. Sitting with Vive trackers looks extremely natural, and it looks pretty great with SlimeVR as well. Even spinning around in a chair, I wasn't able to throw off the IMUs or software. In terms of walking, standing, and chair sitting, the Slime trackers already perform better than Nolo and Connect, and do sit short of the Vive trackers because the movement isn't quite one-to-one. Sitting, for example, you may have to have your legs open a little more than normal to avoid automatically crossing placing of the legs. Unfortunately, at this time, laying down is not so good. Apparently, this will be fixed in a software update, as it is the calibration problems again. You can see things are tracking just fine, just obviously the IMUs in software are very confused when you sit down or lay down on a horizontal plane. This is promised to be fixed, but I'd be remiss if I didn't mention it. Laying down just doesn't work for me right now. Hey guys, Future Thrill here. Actually, during the 3 days it took me to make this video, Aaron, the creator of SlimeVR, already updated a ton of stuff. Now the calibration is significantly better and it allows me to actually lay down and it looks really good. I just had to throw the update in because this one simple update made the performance of SlimeVR way better, and I'm guessing way more is on the way. So laying down sort of works now. Okay, right back to it. Dancing? Not so bad. I'm no dancer, but in terms of straps staying in place, I never had a problem with one moving out of position, and the dance moves look pretty close to on par with the Vive trackers, which is super impressive. I want to mention it's not as good, and some movements just flat out didn't work due to the calibration, but this is the best non-Vive tracker full body tracking I've ever seen yet. And finally, I had to test it. How does it handle the handstand? Here's a handstand with the Vive trackers and with SlimeVR, and it does it actually really well, and it's completely surprising me. After laying down and seeing how my avatar contorted, I didn't think there was a chance the slime trackers could handle being completely upside down vertical, but it did, and this just shows that the tracking quality is there, just the software needs work. So my final impressions: with all of the full body tracking methods out there, cheap and expensive, I've pretty much tried them all. SlimeVR was a pain to set up, and every single time you set it up, it's probably going to be a pain as well. But considering a 15-hour battery life, pretty darn good tracking quality, and the price of $180 to at max $250, these are the best trackers at the moment that I've tried that aren't Vive trackers or Tundra, as long as you don't mind spending some time to tweak it. These are a work in progress, and small software tweaks can completely change the experience, and I'm looking forward to those software tweaks. Also, I should mention, probably my favorite part of SlimeVR entirely is that both the software and hardware are completely open source, meaning if you want to adjust the software itself, the source code is right there, and you can actually build a set of slime trackers yourself for even cheaper than buying it, because instructions and parts and schematics are just available to everyone and anyone, even if you want to improve them. I guess you can say I'm pretty happy with my experience, and I'm grateful that people are taking full body tracking into their own hands. Although they probably won't be replacing my Vive trackers yet, but if calibration gets better and the software experience becomes easier, maybe I won't be so cold lying alone in VR chat in my room in front of a mirror in full body tracking. Because, well, now I'll finally have a blanket on. Trackers out of sight and out of mind, occlusion as a problem shall be no more. If you are looking for that basestation-less full body tracking for your basestation-less headset, this is a good option, and it has my stamp of approval. By the way, I'm still looking at Stonk's full body tracking and likely comparing Stonk's, Mocap for All, and Slime once again once I have them all in my hands. So if you're looking forward to that, don't forget to like this video if you loved it, subscribe if you want more of this, and hit that freaking bell if you just can't live without it. Much love, Thrill out.